The coaching staff is complete. Combine is in the books, and it's time to now start to build this 2026 roster. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for March 2nd, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. You know, we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He does a great job. You want to find him on Twitter, you can, at Ari Producers. You can hit me up as well, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. We will hear from you in segment number 3. Calls, texts, a lot of great feedback off a lot of things we've talked about here on the show. We'll do that in segment number 3. Segment number 2, now that the scouting combine is officially in the books. I'm back from Indianapolis, as you could tell, especially if you're watching on YouTube. Thank goodness for that. But we'll talk about some guys that I look out as standout players that the Raiders could have interest after round 1. We know where the round 1 pick's going to go. That's Fernando Mendoza. But who can they address some of their other picks with? We'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. We'll go ahead and jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. FanDuel's giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. So we found out late on Sunday afternoon that the Raiders are official like a referee's whistle when it comes to the coaching staff. The coaching staff is complete. As a matter of fact, one of the latest coaching hires was done on Friday, and it was right around the time that my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920, was wrapping up. It was like, I don't know, it ended at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so it was probably 7:57, and all of a sudden the notice came through that they were hiring another coach. So I got to speak on him really quickly, and then that was it. But now that everything is finalized, everything is in the books, so let's go ahead real quickly and let you know who is on the staff for 2026. And this is official. I doubt that they'll add anyone else at any stage of the game because, again, why would they make this big announcement if they were going to add more coaches? So Clint Kubiak, head coach. Mike McCoy, assistant head coach. Matt Capurro, senior vice president, coaching operations. And then Rohit Mogalavapalia. Yeah, figure that out. Director of special projects and game management. I know I got his name wrong, but he's on the staff as well. I'll get that worked out. Don't you worry. On the offensive side of things, Andrew Janocko, offensive coordinator. Zach Azzani, wide receivers coach. Pete Collins, offensive quality control. Rick Dennison, offensive line. Nick Holtz, he's actually the one that they added on Friday right before my show got wrapped up. Actually been with the Silver and Black for 10 years. Went away for a couple years and is back. Now he's the offensive passing game coordinator. One name that you won't hear, or one position you won't hear, quarterback coach. That's basically what Holtz is going to handle. That's something Mike McCoy is going to handle. That's something Andrew Janocko is going to handle. There is no quarterback coach for the Raiders in 2026. Mario Jebaril, offensive running game coordinator. Connor McQueen, offensive quality control. Luke Steckel, remember, he's with the Raiders. He's back as a tight ends coach. Ben Wilkerson, assistant offensive line coach. Omar Young, running backs coach. And Tim Zetz, offensive assistant. So Tim Zetz was another one that was added late into the project. The defensive coaches: Rob Leonard, defensive coordinator. Steve Ferentz, defensive assistant. Drew Gaither, defensive quality control. Cody Grimm, defensive quality control as well. Al Holcomb, senior defensive assistant. Kenyon Jackson, assistant defensive line. Kentner Cup, defensive quality control. Matt Robinson, safeties coach. Travis Smith, defensive line coach. Ronell Williams, linebackers coach. Joe Woods, passing game coordinator and defensive backs. While the special teams: Joe Day Camillus, special team coordinator. Marquise Williams, senior assistant special teams. And Tim McConnell, assistant special teams. So there you go. Another big laundry list of coaches. Again, when you start to look at an NFL coaching staff, you always look at the offensive coordinator, the head coach, obviously, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. There's about 5-6 coaches. Offensive line coach is a big one as well. Quarterback coach that the Raiders don't have. They had a couple guys that they had in mind for that position. They weren't able to get them. And instead of just going ahead and saying, all right, we're going to force somebody into that position, they decided not to go with that. So not saying that they won't have a quarterback coach next year, but again, between Mike McCoy, who's worked with quarterbacks for quite a long time, Andrew Janocko, who's the offensive coordinator but has worked with quarterbacks for a long time, and also with Nick Holtz, offensive pass game coordinator, I think he'll be covered. And, oh, by the way, the head coach, Clint Kubiak, a guy that's really good with the quarterbacks as well. I think that there will be, honestly, no problem. So that's the coaching staff in a nutshell, signed, sealed, and delivered at some point this week. I'm assuming that we'll end up with a press conference with the Raiders, the head coaching staff, and a couple other coordinators, I'm assuming, but I don't know that for a fact. Also wanted to give you the latest and the greatest when it came to Maxx Crosby. Obviously, he became a big subject, or he is a big subject because he's a hell of a player, but he's a big subject. He was a big subject at the scouting combine. I know a lot of people are tired of the conversation. I'm tired of the conversation, but it's a conversation. So we got to go ahead and speak on it anyway. So Jeremy Fowler from ESPN put out a piece alongside Dan Graziano on ESPN.com, just basically takeaways from the scouting combine. You can go ahead and check it out there. He said it's somewhat quiet on the Maxx Crosby front. This is a layered discussion because a team source said a few weeks ago that Crosby's chances of returning were relatively small, but he also does not plan to request a trade. He's tied with Raiders owner Mark Davis, and he probably wouldn't garner a Micah Parsons-like trade, which was 2 firsts and a key player. So with all that being said, it goes back to kind of what I've been saying for a while, that I don't think that Maxx Crosby will be playing somewhere else in 2026. Are the chances still there? Sure. If the Raiders start off really poorly and get to the trade deadline, could this conversation come up again? Sure. Right? And could some team come through with a big-time offer? Absolutely. All those things are possible. I just don't, at this stage of the game, think it's going to happen. So I think that we will all see Mad Maxx Crosby as a member of the Raiders in 2026. But again, that's just me. And like I said, I know a lot of people are tired of the conversation. I'm tired of having to update it all the time. Sometimes I try to avoid it just because I don't want to talk about it. But when you're talking about one of the best players in the league, one of those big impact players, you have to bring it up at some stage of the game. Also, in Jeremy Fowler's piece, he was talking about defensive players that multiple teams are interested in, and the Raiders came up in this conversation as well, talking about linebacker Tremaine Edmonds from the Bears. He's still only 27 years old. He had 112 total tackles in 2025, 61 solo, 4 interceptions, and a sack. Apparently, Jeremy Fowler said the Titans, Raiders, and Giants are among teams interested in high-end linebackers, and they like Edmonds, who's only 27. Despite 8 years in the league, he was granted permission to seek a trade earlier this week. So the linebacking class in the draft is very deep, but if the Raiders want a guy, especially with moving to a 3-4, and they obviously are going to need multiple linebackers. They don't have linebackers that are under contract. Only Cody Lindenberg and Tommy Eichenberg are under contract right now. You've got E-Rob, you've got Jamal Adams, and you've also got Devin White. All those guys are free agents, so there's no telling that if they bring them back or not. They may want to pursue a guy like Tremaine Edmonds. But the question is, are they willing to give up good draft capital? I don't know what it would take to land him, but apparently they're in on him. And again, he's a proven veteran, so you might want to add a veteran to that room, especially if you're switching defenses from going from a base 4-3 to now a base 3-4. So just kind of the latest and the greatest coming out of the scouting combine, some news and notes, and obviously the Raiders and their coaching staff now finally complete. Coming up in segment number 2, we'll talk about a few players that I think stood out to me. Some guys that kind of checked that box at the scouting combine, guys I already had my eyes on, but did not disappoint at all from their performances on the field, that the Raiders could be taken out and getting an idea of maybe they can add them to the roster following round number 1. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now, FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into bigger potential wins with the College Basketball Parlay Profit Boost. You can build on any college hoops parlay that you want. And how much fun are they? Right? You got the conference tournaments. You've got March Madness. It doesn't get any better than that. Spreads, totals, player props, whatever you want, they've got. And you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with your more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to play right now. FanDuel.com. Play your game. I also want to tell you about Indeed sponsored jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a great stat for you. It says it all. In the minute or so that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Again, support the show. Let them know that you heard about it on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into 5 players that the Raiders could target after round 1. We know who their round 1 guy is going to be. That's Fernando Mendoza. So when you have the number 1 overall pick, you know who it's going to be. There's no looking at some of these great players and saying, oh, man, you got to get that guy. Go get that guy. That's not realistic, right? Because there are going to be guys that are going to go early and often in round 1. And again, the Raiders only have 1 first-round pick. Now, can that change? Could they make some trades and end up with multiple first-round picks? Sure. But I'm not just going to throw that scenario out there if it's not in place at this stage of the game. If, in fact, it does happen to come to fruition, okay, well, then we can adjust the conversation. We can, go back to it and start thinking about it over again. But as of right now, they only have one first-round pick. So one of the guys that I'm looking at that I thought did a really good job kind of solidifying who he is at the scouting combine over the week in Indianapolis, Zachariah Branch, wide receiver from Georgia. He's a guy that I've talked about quite a bit. He's a Bishop Gorman guy. He's related to Cliff Branch, the late, great Cliff Branch, the Hall of Famer for the Silver and Black. That's his great uncle. He's a speedster. He's small. He's 5'8", 177 pounds officially given at the scouting combine, but the dude is a playmaker. So he's a guy that I've been talking about quite a bit. One of the P's that Daniel Jeremiah talked about was playmakers, putting them around the quarterback, right? He said play caller, protection, and playmaker. Zachariah Branch is exactly that. Also is a guy that's a playmaker in the punt game and also the kick return game as well. So he ran like a 4.4 something, like 4.45 40 the first time, and I thought, man, that's a little bit slower than I expected. And also the next one was like a 4.37, and it looked so smooth that I thought he was still going slow. I was like, he's not really moving that fast. And then all of a sudden, it was like, bink, 4.37, 4.35, 4.37, anywhere in that range. I was like, okay, he was really moving, kind of solidified who he is. I would have no problem if the Raiders decided to go ahead and target him following round 1. He's a guy that's really kind of slotted right now in most mock drafts as a late first-round guy, like 30, 31, 32, or he could fall into round 2. I would have no problem if the Raiders went and made that move for him in round number 2. Sticking with the wide receiver position, how about KC Concepcion, the wide receiver from Texas A&M? He's a guy that a lot of people really going into the week last week in Indianapolis didn't really have on their radar. I remember talking to Lindsay Rhodes from SumerSports.com. She's a really good friend, and she was saying, Q, the wide receiver you need to watch out for is the one that not a lot of people are talking about but can play. KC Concepcion is his name. He's got really good size as a receiver. He's got really good burst. Hands are a little inconsistent, but his speed jumps off the screen. He's a guy that I thought did really well, kind of solidifying for who he was at the scouting combine. Went through some of those drills, but Texas A&M has a really good program. Texas A&M was a team that was in the college football playoffs. KC Concepcion is really good wide receiver. And so I would have no problem, again, if the Raiders went that direction. They're looking for more playmakers. They have Brock Bowers. They have Ashton Genty. They have Big Mike. None of us know what Jack Besh is going to be. None of us know what Dante Thornton's going to be. Trey Tucker, he started to emerge last year. How is he going to, look in Clint Kubiak's offense? We'll find out sooner rather than later. But there's a couple wide receiver options right there for the Silver and Black. How about on the defensive side of things? Chris Johnson, the cornerback from San Diego State. I got to give my guy Emory Hunt, footballguys.com. I believe that was Football Guys. Yeah. He put me up on Chris Johnson. He kind of gave me an update on him before I was really looking for him. I had a couple DBs in my mind, and I just asked him, like, hey, who are a couple DBs I should look for? And he said, Chris Johnson is the guy. He had a very good workout. I remember him at the podium on during the week there in Indianapolis. He was saying that what he wanted to really prove was how fast he was. And so I asked him, do you have a time in mind that you're going to run? He said, yep, I know exactly what I'm going to run, but you guys are going to have to pay attention to see what it is. And he ran really well, right? His second run was a 4.40. He had a 38-inch vertical jump. On the field drills, he did really well. His back pedal was smooth. He showed the ability to turn on a dime, kind of open up his hips. And those guys that come from San Diego State, man, they're some really good players, right? Those are some guys that really they have a lot that they have to prove. I remember when he was at the podium, he was saying that, his coach there at San Diego State was saying everything he had to do to even get on the field there at San Diego State. So he said he took it as a challenge. He's actually a guy that could sneak into the back end of round number 1. So Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State, especially since the Raiders cornerback room is up in the air. We don't know if Eric Stokes is going to get re-signed. Darian Porter is obviously only going to be a second-year guy. There's a lot of questions about that cornerback room. I think Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State, would go a long ways in solidifying that room. Also, we've talked about the offensive line quite a bit. How about the center position? A lot of us are talking about Linderbaum from Baltimore, but he's going to have a huge, a lot of people try to get him. Matter of fact, I saw where they said he's going to be making around $22 million a year. He's going to reset the market because so many teams want his services. So maybe the Raiders don't get him. Maybe the Raiders don't see JPJ as the center. Maybe they decide we need to go out and get a guy. Logan Jones, the center from Iowa, very easily could be that guy. He could be a day one starter, 6'3", 299 pounds, ran the fastest 40-yard dash of any offensive lineman at a 4.9. Jones is viewed as an ideal fit for teams that operate in the zone schemes, as he's an excellent on-the-move run blocker. And Jordan Reed from ESPN said, I expect Jones to be picked inside of the top 100 picks and become a starter early on in his career. So, again, just another just in case, right? Okay, you can't get the guy that you're looking for in free agency. You don't have the guy in-house that you think you need. Logan Jones very easily could be a guy that they decide to draft, like Jordan Reed said, in the top 100. Obviously, they've got the picks there to go get him, and they can make him a starter really quick. On the defensive side of things, how about the linebacking room? We know that they need multiple linebackers. Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker from Texas Tech. He's a guy, how do you not like him? How do you not like him? I mean, that dude, he was, he walked on at Texas Tech. I mean, the dude was a heck of a leader. He won every award in college football on the defensive side of things for linebackers you could. Bronco Nagurski Award. He got the Chuck Bednarik Award. He got the Dick Butkus Award, the Vince Lombardi Award, unanimous All-American honors, the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year recognition. Like, what else do you want him to get? And, oh, by the way, he went out there at the scouting combine and really balled out. So especially in a 3-4 defense, I can see Jacob Rodriguez being a guy that the Raiders start to look at and potentially add to that Robbie Leonard-led defense. Joey McGuire is the head coach there at Texas Tech. I'm a big fan of Joey McGuire. I think he does a heck of a job. He was a high school football coach in Texas before he made his way to Baylor, eventually made his way to Texas Tech as the head football coach. So really like what Jacob Rodriguez brings to the table and thinks that he's a guy that the Raiders could target early in the draft as well, obviously following round number 1. And I know I said 5. I'm going to go ahead and cheat and throw one more in there. 6, D'Angelo Pons, the quarterback from Indiana. How can I not talk about him? Right? I mean, he's a guy that's a little bit smaller in stature. He's almost like a Meek Robertson as far as his size goes. But, man, the dude could play. He is an absolute dog. He gets after it. He jumped 43.5 inches in the vertical jump. I mean, the dude just goes, right? The 4th best for a cornerback in combine history. Matter of fact, his stock got boosted a little bit more, but you don't really need to look at the on-field drills. Just look what he did during the playoff run for Indiana. D'Angelo Pons easily was the best guy in that secondary for Indiana. Now, again, a lot of people are going to pigeonhole him and say that he has to be in the slot because he's smaller. But just like we saw Meek Robertson play on the outside, I think D'Angelo Pons could do the same thing. Again, I don't think he's a first-round guy. I think he's a middle of the second round, maybe even early third-round pick. But, again, if you're just trying to retool and revamp this Raiders cornerback room, I think D'Angelo Pons is a guy that could definitely do that. Couple notable players, because obviously I'm a little greedy and I can't just narrow it down to 5 or 6. Omar Cooper, wide receiver from Indiana. Elijah Surratt, wide receiver from Indiana. My guy Torian York, linebacker from Texas A&M. Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from Texas Tech. I think he's going to be a first-round pick, but just in case he slides, that would be a really good one as well. So those are some guys that I'm looking at. Of course, there's plenty more that came out of the scouting combine, but those are some of the ones that stood out to me. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show, 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you coming up, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor we have here on the show, and that's Gametime. We live in a world where we can stream anything order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets. But somehow, buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. They've got hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There's got to be a better way. And there is. That's why you've got to use the Gametime app. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple. Whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into, they've got you, right? You could jump on the app, check out tickets for an upcoming game, and it honestly will take you just a few minutes. You can see the panoramic views from every seat before you buy. The price you see includes all the fees, no surprises at checkout. You can even spot zone deals, where you pick the section, Gametime picks the seats for extra savings. 2 taps, and you have great seats locked in. Fast, easy, done. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get into that, though, do want to thank you so much for making it the first listen of the day. We'll start out with a call from Proto in Vancouver. He's calling to talk about Fernando Mendoza and a trait that people are calling a weakness. Here's Proto in Vancouver.
Hey, yo, what up, Raider Nation? Sorry if I sound loud because I'm in the car. But I wanted to call in and talk about Mendoza and one of the weaknesses that people have pointed out. That is that Mendoza primarily ran an RPO offense in college. As a matter of fact, I think Mendoza only got under center like 7 or 8 times. However, here's why that is not a knock on Mendoza. Number one, most, and I mean the vast majority of college quarterbacks are running RPOs. Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, they all ran RPOs at a very, very high rate. But secondly, there's a reason why RPOs are becoming the choice in college, and I do think they're going to start becoming the choice more in the NFL. That is, quarterbacks don't want to turn their backs away from the defense. Defenses now are so complex that we are doing pre-snap motions and fake-outs on defense. We have guys like Maxx Crosby implementing basketball tactics and crossovers in his defensive play. So quarterbacks now don't want to look away from the defense because the defense is constantly moving. That's the real reason why RPOs became popular. It's not because of anything negative. And secondly, because of RPOs, we actually know when a quarterback is not good at reading a defense, like Justin Fields, or someone like Mendoza, who we know based on his plays and based on everything that we've seen, he can read a defense at a very, very high rate. Mendoza is excellent at breaking down the defense. And that comes from the fact that he primarily runs RPOs, and he can see everything that a defense is moving. So I actually think Kubiak is going to implement more RPOs in his offense. I really do. Let me know what you guys think. In Raider Nation, Q, as always, keep up the good work. Have a wonderful day.
Proto, thanks so much for the call. And yeah, I don't put too much stock in Fernando only running RPOs. As you mentioned, that's what basically the majority of college football does, right? Mendoza, to me, strong enough, smart enough, work ethic is there. It puts him right where he needs to be, right? He's going to be, in my opinion, a very quality NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be elite, but he's going to be really good. And especially for me, the work ethic is major. He's got the work ethic to continue to get better. He's going to want to learn from Tom Brady. He's going to have great teaching from Clint Kubiak. Like, Clint Kubiak is an X factor here. He puts every quarterback he works with in a great position to succeed. And I've said it many times, I don't think the Raiders put Fernando Mendoza out there to play until they feel like Fernando Mendoza is ready to play and is in the best position. So he has the protection. He has the playmakers all put in place. I don't think they're going to force him on the field, and that, to me, is a big deal as well. Proto, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Nick in La Crosse. He says, hey, Q, Nick from La Crosse. I know you're not a fan of the idea of Carr coming back to the Raiders. I'm here to tell you that the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think it makes the most sense for us bringing in a different quarterback to fill the role. We draft Mendoza, we have him sit and learn behind a quarterback to develop. Carr knows Kubiak's system already, so we won't have to have someone come in and learn it. I feel like Carr and Mendoza will get along really well. They're both religious, very passionate about the game they play. We will also be doing right by Carr by bringing him back, giving him an opportunity to retire as a Raider. He has stated in his podcast that he is against the idea of having Mendoza start right away too, and they have to do him right by letting him develop. I think he'll be open to the idea of being that guy to mentor and help develop him. I'm speaking as a big DC fan. Along with that, I just said I really want to see him back in the silver and black. Thanks for reading my text, and as always, look forward to listening every day. It's Nick and Lacrosse. Thanks for the text. I appreciate you. Look, I don't like the idea. You're right. I don't like the idea. I don't think it makes a lot of sense, and it's only because Derek Carr, the player, Derek Carr, the name, is so divisive amongst Raider Nation. And I don't think Clint Kubiak, I don't think Fernando Mendoza, I don't think anyone who's part of the new staff needs that, right? I mean, there's a part of the fan base that loves Carr, part of, the fan base that wants to see him out there all the time, and there's part that don't, right? And then on top of that, does Derek Carr just want to be a guy that's going to be there for 6 games? I don't think so. He stated that he wants to come back for a contender, a team that he believes can make a deep run and go to the Super Bowl. That's not who the Raiders are. And on top of that, he wouldn't be playing all year. And maybe he would. Maybe they would play him 1 year. But with that being said, I just don't think you need to open up that can of worms. I just don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I say it all the time. I'm not joking. I'm not saying it because it's, a cute little rhyme or whatever. I just don't think that you look for your ex. I think you look for your next. So if you're looking for a veteran quarterback, and I do believe the Raiders are going to add a veteran quarterback to the mix, I don't think you trade. Remember, trade, that's a big word. You got to give up something to get Derek Carr. It's not like he's a free agent. It's a trade. You'd have to give up something to the Saints to bring him back to potentially be what? A 6, 8, 9 game starter? I don't see that. And would he be willing to go to the bench? And if he went to the bench and you're a fan, do you think that the Raiders did him wrong? Do you think that, oh, yeah, it's cool. He's Mendoza's time. Or do you think like, hey, man, this guy's still playing at a good level. Let's go ahead and let him play. Like, all those things muddy the water, man. I just don't see that as a really good idea. I respect it. I do believe he'll come back and retire as a Raider at some point, but that only requires a 1-day contract. You don't have to sign him for a year for him to be able to retire as a Raider. But thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And there might be some out there that agree with you. I just don't, but I do respect the feedback. Thanks so much. Anthony, he's up next. He's calling to talk about a few positions and players he'd like to see the Raiders draft. Here's Anthony.
How's it going? This is Anthony Fraser Werner. Just calling in about the draft. Mendoza looks great. Let's grab him, and let's grab them Style brothers. The safety and the linebacker. The linebacker's deep. So let's grab some linebackers, and let's turn this thing around. I'm super proud of you guys. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Have a great day, and God bless.
And Dog, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Yeah, Mendoza's a no-brainer. But the Style brothers, I don't think that that's going to happen, man. Unless the Raiders trade back into the first round, especially for Sonny Styles, who's probably now, I mean, he was already slotted, in my opinion, to go top 10. After the way he dominated the combine, he might go top 6, top 7. He'll probably be the first linebacker off the board. Lorenzo, maybe he'll be available, as a second round guy, later round guy, but I think that Sonny will be long gone. The Styles brothers, man, they've got a lot of good DNA. Their genes are all right? They've got it cooking. I saw a picture of their pops. I was like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Those dudes can go out there and ball. But Sonny, he just absolutely dominated. No doubt about it, dominated the combine. And that's why I didn't even bring him up in segment 2, because there was no chance in my mind that the Raiders have any chance of getting him. If they could, oh, absolutely. If they didn't need a quarterback, great. Go get him. Go get Caleb Downs. Go get, one of those big offensive tackles. There's a lot of guys I would say to go get if they didn't need a quarterback, but they do. So Fernando Mendoza will be their guy. Thanks so much for the text or call. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from Scarlet Raider. Says, hey, yo, Q. Scarlet Raider from the 614. Assuming we draft Mendoza, whose back shoulder throw is a thing of beauty, doesn't it make all the sense in the world to make a push for Mike Evans before the draft? When healthy, dude is a dog. Oh, by the way, the back shoulder thing I mentioned, yeah, he's the guy that can haul them in. I know he might want to chase the ring, but who is to say the Raiders can't be a contender in 2027? That's from Scarlet Raider. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate it. I agree with the back shoulder throws. Those are a thing of beauty for Mendoza. I don't think, Mendoza starts right away, so I don't think that there's any reason to assume that all of a sudden he's going to be that guy and be making that connection immediately. And on top of that, I just don't think that at Mike Evans' age, how long he's been in the league, he's going to want, a big payday, and he's probably going to want a chance to win. And I don't think the Raiders are in that position right now. That's just me. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't think Mike Evans as a free agent wide receiver makes a lot of sense. I think the Raiders have a bigger need, and I think that they'll go address the wide receiver position in the draft. I'd rather him get one of the guys that they already are familiar with, like Elijah Surratt or Omar Cooper. Those guys come from Indiana. Those guys are already familiar with Fernando Mendoza. I'd rather the Raiders go and get one of those two dudes, and he'll be comfortable with them, as opposed to go out and get a veteran like Mike Evans. I understand the thinking behind it. I just don't think that the timeline makes a whole lot of sense. So thanks so much for that. I definitely appreciate that. And we'll get to a call from Raider Rue in Oakland tomorrow. We'll get a text from North Logan Raider tomorrow as well. Later on this morning, we've got the Raider Squad Show. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And so happy to be back on the Pacific time. Man, oh man, that Eastern time zone is for the birds. You can keep that. I don't want nothing to do with that. You know how you can stop me from moving? Tell me I got to go to the Eastern time zone. I don't want nothing to do with that, man. Y'all can keep it. But we're back 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. later on this morning. We should have a lot of fun. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.